thank you for coming on. This is really, really cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
A lot to talk about. The way I really start every podcast is trying to get a better understanding of like your story, where you started and how you got to where you are. So if you want to give a little rundown of Dalton Harum's story.
Yeah, just from being a kid or what?
Yeah, being a kid, growing up in Wenatchee or Ellensburg, wherever it is.
Yeah. So I was born in Ellensburg. Um, I lived there until the second or third grade. Grew up typical childhood, playing sports, hunted a lot. Um, and then from there, I moved to Wenatchee. I had more family there than I did in Ellensburg. Um, just, hunting and fishing was kind
Yeah,
of my passions as well as sports. So that just kept growing and growing and growing as I got older. I pretty much spent all my free time in the woods or fishing or doing something. Um, there's a lot of mountains around Wenatchee and a river that goes through it. So I was blessed to be able to grow up there and have all that, right
yeah.
at
The
my front door.
I've seen pictures of Wenatchee. It's freaking beautiful.
Yeah,
Just like the
yeah,
mountains in the background with the river and the town. It seems like a very cool place.
yeah.
That's
So,
in Central Washington, correct?
yep, right in the middle. It's like, um, so right there is kind of where they separate east and west. The west side of the mountains are a lot different than the east side of the mountains in Washington.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up there playing sports, doing the whole thing. And like I said, those passions just kept growing as I got older.
We played together at Tech. We played baseball together. And it's probably the first thing that anybody, other than just like your name and knowing what you look like, the first thing that anybody gathers is that you like to hunt. You like to be outside, like to fish. And
Yeah,
I was curious, like you just mentioned, that's something you've been doing since before you can remember, or how did that start? Your dad get you into it? What what kind of instilled that passion?
yeah. My dad got me into it. I had a couple family members that were into it, and they didn't, do it necessarily like I do now, but they kind of, got my foot in the door of it for sure. And then as I got older, I started to meet people who liked it as much as I did. Because there's a lot of different levels. Like it's just like anything else. Some guys are really into it. Some guys just have their foot in the door. And I'm kind of the person that's got like a addictive personality. Like if I do something, I go
Yeah.
full on. So yeah, I met a dude who I contribute a lot of it to, Matt Alwine. Uh, Met him, started spending time with him, running around filming hunts, and we had kind of the same style. We were both obsessed with it equally as much, and he's the one that got me really into it. To the elk hunting, all
Yeah.
that stuff, the more intense like backcountry stuff. He's the guy that started all that for me. Um,
It's one of
but
those I want to preface it like you can see your Instagram. It's not like some casual hobby for you. It is like a part of who you are for sure. I mean, I don't even know how many like this isn't like just going to hunt whitetails in the fall or in the winter. It's like hunting everything all year round, some crazy hunts. I mean, I know on your Instagram you've got I don't know how many elk, couple bear, couple mountain lions if I'm not mistaken, turkeys. So, yeah, it's no casual average Joe relationship with hunting.
yeah, man, it's a year-round thing for me. People, tend to laugh or whatever because I think if you don't grow up hunting and you don't see that side of it, you don't, you think it's some redneck driving around a four-wheeler with a case of beer on the back type thing. But that's not the case for me.
Yeah.
I train for it. I work out year-round. I, run before hunts. I do all that stuff for hunting, and people think that's funny probably, but yeah, it's that serious to me.
Well, that brings up a good question, and sorry for that dog that's barking, but that brings up a good question. Why do you take it so seriously, do you think? Why is hunting so important to you?
It's just my passion, man. It's what I love. There's so many things about it. It's gifted me a lot of knowledge, I would say. I think it's, one of the biggest reasons I was able to, you know, play baseball at Tech or do any of that. It taught me so many life lessons. Hard work, determination, discipline. That's a big one. Because nobody's out there making you do it. You kind of have to do that stuff on your own. So you got to be, intrinsically motivated to be able to get up, to be able to want to keep going, keep hiking, because it is hard sometimes. Um, so yeah, I think it's just, my passion. It's what I love to do, and I have a great respect for it, and it makes me who I am. If I don't get a hunt, I'm not going to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
So having that time in the outdoors, spending time in the mountains, whatever it is a big, big part of my life.
Yeah, I think it was last year, you posted something, or maybe it was the year before. You spent 20 something days of the month of September in the woods on an elk hunt. And I think
Yeah.
you want to run through that.
Um, the last 2 years I have.
That's incredible.
Elk hunting is that's my, yeah, I love all types of hunting and stuff, but elk hunting is my deal. Um, 2021, yeah, I hunted 25 days. Um, and they were hard 25 days. I was in bulls a lot, and I had an insane amount of close encounters, but I was hunting very thick country and it was difficult.
It's an
And I was hunting
archery
by
hunt as
myself.
well, just to
Yeah,
clarify.
all archery. Yeah, I've never shot an elk with a rifle.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I had a lot of encounters. I was hunting by myself, which is very difficult. Those that know elk hunting, trying to solo call on a bull is hard. And I finally ended up killing one, I think, on September 28th. And I started on August 31st. It took a couple days in between there to be able to wash clothes and go to town, get more food, things like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, and then last year I did two. I spent a lot of time, but it was a little quote unquote easier year, I would say. I I started same time, August 31st, and then I hunted 5 or 6 days. I ran down south, next to Boise, I don't know, 8 hours or so, and helped my buddy Matt with his bull. Uh, he killed one in a crazy place, and I think we did 18 or 20 miles round trip in one day,
Wow.
packing this
That's
thing out.
hiking, like packing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was able to get my
Wow.
dirt bike in a little ways, but yeah, the trail got
That's
too rough, and then it
crazy.
was just all
And for
hiking.
people like I would consider myself a hunter, but I'm at this point in my life, I'm more of when the opportunity presents itself in the winter when I'm back home, deer, hog. I love being outside. I love hunting, but it's just not something that I've like built my life around like yours at this point. But to clarify for people that maybe don't understand, elk is how big is the biggest elk that you've killed? Like what, 800 pounds, something like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially depends on where you kill them too and what they are. Cause there's subspecies of elk. There's Roosevelt, there's Rocky Mountain, there's Thule elk. The ones that I hunt in North Idaho generally have huge, huge bodies. So there's things you can do to lighten your load. It's called boning them out. So basically, you're taking all the meat off the bones, so you're not carrying the weight of the bones out. Um, but yeah, like an elk quarter, which is one leg, a
yeah,
front quarter, on a big mature bull can be 70 pounds,
yeah,
and a rear quarter is like 110,
yeah,
and then you have 30, 40 pounds of neck meat. Mature bull, you got 20-ish pound back straps, couple pound tenderloins. You got rib meat, all that.
yeah.
So it adds up.
So you're
It's a
pushing
lot.
a few 100 pounds, and you just mentioned 18 to 20 miles with a few 100 pounds, and this isn't a flat walk. It's not like a walk in some city park, man. That's so that kind of harkens back to your point about training for it. Like if you didn't train for that, I don't think you'd be able to even do that stuff.
No, you couldn't even fathom it. Yeah, yeah. It's insanely difficult, and that's where like the discipline things comes in too. Because I trained for it, and we got really strong legs. But after like a couple miles, man, it's a mental warfare. You want
Yeah.
to just sit down, but you can't. So, yeah, it requires a lot. You can't do that type of thing if you're not ready for it.
Yeah. And that actually brings back a memory of mine from VT when you squatted 500. And I remember
Yeah.
being like, wait a second, dude. This dude's like, I mean, he's a built dude. Like, you were like not the typical guy I could see in the 500 club. Not in any disrespectful way. It's like you're a leaner dude, and you
Yeah,
throw
no, I think
500
I was
pounds in squat.
skinnier.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well now it makes sense if you've been doing this type of stuff your whole life, maybe that that adds up.
Yeah. No, like I said, I spent, my whole childhood hiking in the mountains. So I always had strong legs, but
Yeah. You know Kip Folks?
yeah, I don't not personally, but
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
of them, yeah.
Yeah, he I love his type of training and stuff. He has a video of him. He'll just tie a rope around his waist and then around the tire, and then just like
Mhm.
march up hills. You ever done anything like that?
Yeah, I've done things like that, like sled pulls and things,
Yeah,
but honestly, one of the best things is backpack training because there's nothing
yeah,
really that simulates putting all that weight on your back. So you kind of have to just put a backpack on a ruck. Obviously, having the strong legs and strong core, even strong upper body helps. But yeah, things like that where you're being put in awkward, so to speak, positions, then yeah, those things definitely help.
yeah. And why? I mean, like I mentioned before, I don't know. Do you know how many species you've hunted and successfully harvested?
A lot, man. I've yeah, I think I have to kill a blacktail, um, a bighorn sheep with special permit, a mountain goat, which is special permit, and a moose, which is special permit, and then I'll pretty much have everything in the Western United States
That's
done.
pretty damn cool. So what is it about elk then? Like why is elk hunting the pinnacle for you?
Uh One, I have a ton of respect for them. They're an amazing animal. The things they can do, but it's more so, like I said, it's hard, and everybody glorifies it, and you see videos of it. Um, but yeah, the people that haven't done it, maybe live on the other side of the country where there isn't any. Um, it's a lot different. It's hard. I think that's the biggest thing is that delayed gratification for me. Like putting in that work all year long, preparing, shooting the bow, lifting weights, eating well, doing all that stuff, and then going out and being able to, put all that to work. And you get tested every single day. Like that year I spent 25 days, even just being by yourself in the mountains that long is something. You start to go crazy.
I
So it
guarantee
takes
you
so
that the
much.
vast majority of people couldn't do that part, let alone the hiking, let alone the packing out, let alone the actual skills and abilities to be able to bring in the animal and get close and put in a good shot and then quarter and all that stuff. Like hunting skills aside, I guarantee you the vast majority of people would not be able to spend 25 days alone by themselves in any environment.
Yeah, it definitely takes, training and working up to it. That wasn't like my first hunt or anything. I've built up to that my entire
Yeah.
life and put a ton of time into it. But yeah, all that together, and then just the day in, day out grind of getting up, hiking. You don't have a grocery store there with all the best food. You don't have you don't have all the best cooking things. You're eating, you know, sparse, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And then the mental elk are so hard to kill, man. Their noses are unreal. They can see well. They know where they live. Obviously, it's their home, especially in that thick country. Like I said, I had so many close encounters. They get to 40, 50 yards, and you can see them, especially like bow hunting. What I'm talking about, you can
Yeah.
see them, but you don't have a clear shot because it's so thick. I'm within bow range, but I can't shoot them. I
Yeah.
can see them, but and they can see where the sound's coming from, and if they see where the sound's coming from, there's not an elk standing there. They're not gonna come any closer.
Yeah.
So that is mentally taxing as well. Just knowing you're so close and failing, so close and failing, so close and failing. Yep. And then eventually it happens. And when it happens, it's like and you're on top. It's like the best
Yeah.
drug anyone can get.
Dude, that's actually one of the questions I wanted to harp on. I'm glad you just brought that up because I've never killed an elk. I mean, we've talked about it before, dude. That's like it is a dream of mine to do that exact type of hunt. Archery, bull elk, just absolute grind. And I mean, I've spoken about it a little bit before, but like elk are kind of like in terms of American wild game, it's kind of like the LeBron James, like the pinnacle of what people are like aspiring to hunt for most often. But the idea of killing a big old elk after 20 something days hunting these ups and downs, getting close, getting smelt, getting seen, whatever, and then actually harvesting an animal that will feed you and your family and whatever for several months. What does that feel like? Like what the emotions of that?
It's it's hard to explain until you do it. You don't really know the emotions that come over you. Like I'm not per se an emotional guy, but man, like when it happens, that year that bull wasn't even the biggest bull I ever killed, but it didn't matter. Like I didn't know if I wanted to cry, if I wanted to scream, if I wanted, I didn't know
Yeah,
what, but it's just a rush of emotions come over you. I was really thankful because it doesn't always happen. It's hard. I think the statistic out there is less than 10% of people that have an elk tag, just an elk tag in general, you know, kill an elk actually, but let alone an archery elk tag. I think the statistics in my unit where I hunt, mostly in Idaho, is like 4 or 5% of the
wow,
archery tag holders kill an elk. So it
that's
doesn't
insane.
always happen. So you're thankful when it does because no matter how good you are, you'll get humbled. Like every year, I think I'm dialed and I've learned more and more and more. And I've killed a lot of them. I've been in a lot of situations, spent a lot of time in the woods, but every year I get humbled and I learn something new. So that's another thing I like about it is there's always something to learn. You never have it all figured out. And I mean, you're in the mountains with a wild animal. It takes one wind change or wind swirl and it's all over. You could have done everything perfect, and then something completely out of your control ruins it.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
then
again,
go ahead.
yeah, that mental side comes into it because that's taxing mentally. But you just have to keep going and do it again, try again.
Yeah, my from my personal experience, the frustration. For example, I want to say last November, 2 Novembers ago, I was hunting down in Central Georgia where we have hunted my whole life, and this doe walks in. I'm just trying to get some meat. 18 yards, I got very arrogant. Tried to hit a headshot and missed, which I was probably the most frustrated, definitely the most frustrated I've ever been in hunting, but one of the more frustrated I've ever been in my life. Just at like, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because that was the longest day I've ever hunted. I woke up and didn't go back to, like, I think I spent 14 or 15 hours in the woods that day, which for me at the time was very long. And I was so frustrated because I just put all this work into it and I, it didn't come to fruition. So I'm trying to extrapolate that amount of frustration over 25 days. Like, imagine if on that 25th day you see this elk and the wind changes, or you make a stupid mistake and for some reason tip the elk off and he leaves. Like, the amount of frustration that could garner is unbearable for most folks.
Yeah, it's mentally exhausting, and that's why I said hunting has taught me so many life lessons, especially like if you relate it to baseball. Baseball is a game of failure, right? But you have to keep going mentally to be able to be successful at it, whether you fail or not. And I learned part of that from hunting, and I learned you can put in as much hard work as you want, but it always doesn't guarantee success. You can do everything right. You can do everything you can, but it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It just means you're going to have a better chance at it.
Yeah,
So yeah, hunting definitely instilled that in my brain. Um, but yeah, it's definitely difficult. But when it all comes together, it can feel impossible at times, and then it can feel super easy at times. Like last year, I think I killed mine on September 8th,
yeah,
and I think I only spent 5 days total hunting for myself. So it seemed really easy. I found a bull in the morning, hiked in,
Yeah.
got a bugle, got close. Bugle, he came screaming, running right in, and I killed him. Like that, it was over.
Yeah.
So it definitely changes, and it's all depending. But that happens sometimes. I know when I was young getting into it, I had a couple experiences like that, a couple bigger bulls that I killed, and it instilled a kind of a false confidence in me. I thought I had it all
Yeah.
figured out. I was like, oh, this is easy. These people that say this stuff's hard, they just don't know how to elk hunt. And then that next,
Get
couple
humbled real
years,
quick.
yeah, I got humbled, and I was like, I couldn't kill an elk with a rifle if it was standing in front of me right now. Um, but yeah, it's interesting for sure. I don't think there's a lot of things out there that test you in those ways or do those things for you, and maybe that's part of the reason I like it so much. But
I don't think there's. Let me think about that. Off the top of my head, I can't think of really anything other than maybe professional athletic endeavors, like the elite challenge, like the challenges of the elite professional athletes in the world, or at least in the U.S. I don't know what else would challenge you on a year in and year out basis. I don't know what would challenge you more than that type of hunting. I can't think of anything. But you mentioned something earlier that I don't want to gloss over that I think is so cool, specifically about elk hunting, because we've mentioned how heavy it is and how hard these packouts are. You said you spent however many days hunting for yourself, and it's a common thing. I mean, it's extremely common for elk hunters. Like you mentioned, you went and helped your buddy pack that elk out. What's that like, being a part of the community where you? It's not an easy thing to do, to go help drive 8 hours or whatever, help your buddy pack 20 miles, 100 pounds, 20 miles. Like, why do you feel compelled to do that?
um, there's definitely things like finding a good hunting partner is rare. If you spend a ton of time in the mountains doing something that mentally challenging, if you guys aren't compatible, you're gonna end up wanting to kill each other. Um, it's just because it drives you crazy at times, right? Like the highest of highs, lowest of lows. But Matt, we've since we've been together, we would both do that same thing. Like mine, like I told you, I went down last year. I helped him uh, pack out that bull, and man, we were smoked, just broken after that. Drove back to Boise. I slept, I think, 6 hours. Got up and headed straight back up north to my spot. Drove 6 hours, and then woke up the next morning and killed my bull the next morning, and I
Wow.
was still broken.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't put my hip belt on my backpack around my waist because it was so sore from all that weight, and I had blisters the whole nine. And he was broken too. His knees were hurting, his back hurt, everything. He just drove back, and he was out to dinner with his family. He's got a wife and kids. And I called him. I didn't know how good of a shot I made it, and he was like, "Dude, I'll be there in the morning." And so he drove another 3 hours back down and helped me pack out that bull that I killed last year, even though he was broken too. So
Yeah.
we'd both do it for each other. It's not something you don't. It's for your close hunting partners or family, things like that. That bond is so strong. Because if I was in that situation that he was in, I for damn sure would be hoping that he would come down and help me out,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't do it by yourself. So it's kind of just a respect thing, and we would do it for each other. We're kind of you know teammates in a sense,
Totally.
where we pick each other up.
Do
And that's
you
another thing.
Go ahead? Sorry.
Solo elk hunting versus hunting with partners is completely different. Um, it can be one of the best experiences in the world if you're elk hunting with good hunting partners that you get along with well. It's I love the solo hunting because it's a grind mentally, physically, like we talked about. Um, but I also do love being able to share it with people because it's a special thing getting to share all those emotions and the highs and lows with other people that you enjoy being around.
Absolutely. And just the cumulative effort that's been into it. Obviously, I've never been on a hunt like that, but the way I imagine it is like, say y'all are on a 7-day hunt, and somebody tags out like the first 2 days or whatever, and then you and your other buddy are grinding, y'all help him pack out, et cetera, and then day 7 one of y'all gets an elk, and it's like just the cumulative emotion that's gone into it, the cumulative effort, the cumulative energy that's been spent on those hunts together. Just seems like it would be so rewarding for everybody, even if per se the third guy didn't get an elk, didn't kill an elk. I'm sure that he would still feel, if he was a good hunting partner, he'd probably still feel some level of elation if you or your other partner killed an elk, which I think is so cool, because it's very hard to find a community like that, even if it's small in a lot of the world today.
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of that in society today, and that's something I've grown in as I've gotten older and gotten more experience. When I was young, I was pretty selfish. It was all about, what I could do and what I could kill and what it was all me. But now, like I said, I only spent a couple days hunting for myself last year. I went and helped Matt, and then I helped my sister's boyfriend get his first elk. I called him an elk, and he killed his first archery bull, and that was like, all the work and everything. It was like I killed one. You still get those same emotions because you're all in it together, right? So when somebody is successful, and it's somebody like a good hunting partner, you feel all those same emotions, and it's almost just as cool as killing one for yourself.
It is similar to, you mentioned team. It's similar to, like, the more I think about it, it's similar to the team dynamic. For example, like say a baseball team wins a game and the second baseman makes some nice plays, but the pitcher is the one who gets like the complete game shutout or whatever. The second baseman is just as elated as the pitcher, and vice versa, because they both work towards the same goal. And if I can clear that up a little bit, say you go help your buddy out, or your sister's boyfriend, he's the one who actually pulls the trigger, and or I don't know if it was archery or whatever, but kills the actual elk. But you did your part as well. You helped call it in. You helped get him in the right position. You both helped pack out. So it really is a team effort with that type of hunt, which makes solo hunting that type, like an elk, seem even all the more difficult.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, like you said, that team, you're all working towards that same goal. So when it happens, it's rewarding for everyone. And it's just like in baseball, like one guy's a really bad game, one guy's a really good game, and that guy has a good game, pick, the team up, the slack up, and if they end up winning, then they accomplish their goal. Whether it was the guy hitting third or the guy hitting ninth, it doesn't really matter as long as you win. But yeah, it's definitely two different experiences in all, like solo hunting versus team hunting, because there's aspects of solo hunting that you don't get hunting with the team. Like I said, that time being spent in the woods, you're so used to in society today, like the world moves pretty quick and you're so used to everything. That first year is definitely difficult for me coming back. I didn't really realize it until I came back into society. Like when all you're doing is waking up and your only goal is to kill an elk every day.
Yeah.
And that's all you're worried about. You come back into society and you got all these things. You got, a family, you got work, you got this, you got that. It's overwhelming for sure. But it's also different being in the woods by yourself. Like, to drive yourself crazy. If you don't have, a movie download on your phone or a book or, some music or something to listen to at night, you'll go crazy spending that much time by yourself, because, you start talking to yourself. It's a change of pace for sure.
Confinement is a punishment, man. That's a thing that people do to prisoners of war. They make people sit by themselves, which is also a testament to the mental capacity that it takes to do something like that, and also just the amount of like learning about yourself, because that's when you do learn about yourself, is when you spend time with yourself. And like you mentioned, most people don't spend a single second alone. Like, they have their phone, they have TV, they have music, they have friends, colleagues, whatever it is, during a regular day. So most people don't really spend more than maybe a few seconds a day alone. And then you're going to do it in the middle of wilderness where there's predatory animals that could, I don't know if there's grizzlies where you're hunting. I'm assuming if it's northern Idaho, then probably
there's a couple that come through.
Yeah, but it's a high stress environment in terms of the external stressors like presented to you. Because I mean, being in the wilderness is something that definitely takes a toll on your like awareness. It's definitely an uneasy situation. You're also working out, like you're basically doing a workout all day. I mean, there's obviously times when you're glassing and stuff, but you're not eating the highest quality nutrition. You're by yourself for 20 days, man. That sounds like something that somebody would consider a serious punishment if they felt so inclined.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's different, kind of like what we do. Like a lot of people will see hunting as a, vacation or, you know, whatever. But if you look back at it, it really does seem like work, but it doesn't feel like it to me. Like that is my happy place. I don't. I In a way, I'm addicted to like that suffering and that feeling because I know what that feeling on the other side feels like. That delayed gratification we talked about. So that's part of it. It's easier for me to get going and have that discipline to get up and do it every day when I know what that feeling feels like. But yeah, you're definitely faced with a different set of challenges because it's all different than your normal day-to-day life. But in the end, when I come out from it, like I am my best person. Like I am the best version of myself when I get done doing something like that. Like you said, it does teach you a lot about yourself. And when you're away from things that long, it helps you, appreciate and be grateful for the things that you have in day-to-day life, which I think is something a lot of people don't get experience because they don't, get time away from it. But, whether that be your family or your work or your dogs or whatever it is, it makes you have a new level of appreciation when you come back because you've spent all that time away from them.
Yeah, that's makes total sense. It's like a great reset. Gives you the space to sort of clarify stuff, and then go back into society with a fresh perspective. I remember Joe Rogan or somebody talking about how their maybe it was Cam Haynes, their greatest mental clarity, like the most clear and focused and best they ever feel as men in this world is after a hunt like that. They said like when
Yep.
they go back and even if it's unsuccessful, whatever, when they leave that period of time that they spend in the woods, they come back and they're like the most uh, optimal, best version of themselves. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the exact same way for me. Um, I think it's to relate it. I think when you do hard, I think doing hard things are good, and it's good for you. At least me. Like I said, I'm kind of addicted to that suffering, but it's no different than when you have a good workout or a good run, or you do something that you don't your body doesn't want to do, but you make it do anyway. When you're done with that, you get those endorphins or whatever it is that makes you feel good. Uh, and so it's just an extended, amplified version of that, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's literally just like it's like the microcosm of a workout or like a hard sauna or something, except
Hmm.
it's extrapolated over days and weeks.
Yep.
And I mean that if the reward is correlated to that, then you can imagine how powerful and profound the reward would feel if doing a good workout feels this good. Imagine doing that for 20 days. Imagine the reward. So that's awesome. I want to go back to something that you hear ethical hunters at least like talk about a good bit. You said you have so much respect for the elk. A lot of people that don't hunt might not understand what that means. They might be like, "What do you mean respect for the elk?" Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think it's important to have respect for whatever you're hunting, and that's a thing that a lot of people get wrong in the hunting community. People that don't do it, because whether it's a bad video on the internet or something, people get the wrong image of it. But when you spend as much time as I do in the wilderness and stuff, and like I said, spent a month in September living with them, when you live with those elk and you see what they go through every day and how hard they are to kill, you gain a new respect for them because the weather, they live through conditions that are unimaginable. Humans were spoiled, especially now with all this technology. Even when I'm backcountry hunting, I have all this stuff now, ultralight tents, water filtrations, jet boils, dehydrated meals, all that stuff. And it's a freaking suffer fest for me to live up there for whether it be a week, a month, whatever. But these things do it every day. And they don't have the fancy rain gear. They don't
Yeah.
have a fire. They don't have all these things. And they do it day in, day out. And they're so hard to kill. Uh, they have to withstand predators more than I do. They don't have a bow or a pistol to fight them
Yeah.
off. They got their feet to get away with.
Yeah.
Um, so you gain a new sense of respect when you spend that much time with them and you realize kind of the ins and outs of them, what they go through, the things they have to do to survive, and how good they are at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where the respect comes from for me. Um,
You know
and
Steven Ranella, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Yeah. So he has this debate where it's a cordial debate, but he's talking with a vegan about deer or like whitetails essentially, and he brings up this point where he's like, I know more. I've spent more time learning about and with experiencing the places and the way that white-tailed deer live. He's speaking it from a hunter's perspective, not just him specifically. But with all that combined, he's like, I bet you that I actually care for and respect the animal more in a way that you could never even understand. And I think that's another very paradoxical thing, or oxymoronical rather. People think, what do you mean you can care for an animal that you're trying to kill? How does that make sense? And for a hunter, it might be inherent, but what do you think about that?
yeah, that's a huge thing. I wish I could sit down and have a conversation with everyone that's against it because I just don't think they think about it right. It's like a lot of things with social media and everything today. Someone will watch a 10-second TikTok or whatever it be and think they know everything about the situation, but that's not
Yeah.
the case. Hunters spend so much time and effort doing all this stuff, especially, not everyone, but most of them. Um, they understand the science and the data behind it. It's to grow these animals to have healthy herds. It doesn't just happen like that. Like it takes intense management, which hunting is. It takes money, which hunting gives. All these things that hunters contribute that wouldn't be there if we didn't hunt. So we wouldn't have the money for all the studies to know season dates and harvest quotas and things like that. And people think it's we can't care for animals because we kill them, but if they could just realize we're giving them the most peaceful, ethical death possible for them.
Hmm.
They don't just pass away in their sleep 99% of the time. It's either a disease, and if you've ever seen an animal with disease, whether it be EHD, blue tongue, something like that,
Chronic waste
that
with these whitetails where they're like losing their minds.
yeah, it's not something I would want to experience, or they die from dehydration, starvation, overpopulation, or they get mauled by a cougar or a bear, or they get shot with an arrow and die in 10 seconds, don't even know what happened, or they get shot with a rifle and they die in instant death. That's something people don't really realize. That death these animals get from hunting is 99% of the time it's the most peaceful way and ethical way they can go. Um, so those vegans and stuff that say things like that we can't respect animals because we kill them. I think if they were to spend a week with a biologist or someone who's spent a lot of time in the woods and done all this stuff, I think they would have a new perspective. They just don't. I don't think they're well educated. And part of that society today, hunting's not the most popular thing in the world, especially depending on where you live. If you grow up in the city and that's all you know, and you've never been in the mountains and you don't spend time around animals, how would you be expected to know everything that goes on? You're getting your information through an external source, which isn't, accurate,
Yeah.
especially in today's day and age.
No, I think that's a extremely valid way to look at it. And the point about them not really, like somebody in the city, for example, who had vegan parents, who grows up vegan, and I'm not sitting here shitting on vegans. I'm not a vegan. Obviously, you're not as well. But like, if they are grown up in an environment or raised in an environment where they don't ever hear a single good thing about hunting, they don't know, they've never been hunting, they've never dove into the research about the amount of money that hunting has generated for conservation and the success that conservation has actually brought forth. Like, for example, white-tailed deer. I think whitetails estimates are that whitetails are more successful as a population now in terms of population now than they were before Columbus got to America. Which,
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And
that's
people
hunting.
think, yeah. So hunters fight for animals more than anyone does, more than vegans do, whatever. People think, oh, you kill them, it's wrong. What about, like, who is it fighting for the animals in public lands so people don't build roads or highways or housing developments in their natural habitat? To me, that's more not caring or respecting for wildlife than trying to successfully manage a population. You're today we're encroaching on their home. These whether it's building a highway through a wintering range for mule deer where they migrate, that has a huge toll. Like, you're getting migrating mule deer crossing a highway getting killed, or there's fences that they're jumping and getting killed. And people don't really realize that side of it. And it's hunters and outdoorsmen who fund those projects to try to keep our public lands public, to try to keep roads and housing developments out of areas that are for wildlife,
Yeah, and
to
then
try to sustain that population and make it as healthy as it possibly can be.
yeah, I was just looking this up just so I didn't misspeak, but the Pittman-Robertson Act, where a certain portion of every you may know more about this if you do, then speak up, but like basically where the percentage of all ammo, hunting, gun sales, like any type of equipment sales goes towards conservation. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it depends, but yeah, the biggest thing is tags and
Yep.
licenses,
Yeah.
but as well as there's certain places like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, for example. They have these banquets, fundraisers. A certain percentage of certain companies donate, to their cause, and so in reality, it's all hunting and hunters that fund this conservation money. And a big thing is tags and licenses. Like, that directly funds research, data, like
Mm-hmm.
biological data, all those things, and that are needed to grow a healthy population.
Yeah.
If you look at one of the biggest examples of it would be Africa.
Yeah.
If hunting didn't exist in Africa, and if people from the U.S. didn't fly over and spend all that money to hunt these animals, they'd be gone. Like, the poaching population there, everything like that. They poison animals, whether it be predatory animals or whatever. There's not a whole lot of what's going on here over there to try to manage those herds and everything. So, hunters' money has a direct correlation over there to sustaining their wildlife. And yeah, it's just, I don't think people realize what all goes into it.
That's one of the what I believe to be one of the biggest qualms with hunting is people will mention like, oh, but that doctor holding up a giraffe or something in or a zebra in Africa, like that's wrong. And believe it or not, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I used to think, you know what, yeah, I don't know why they do that, but all that was ignorance on my end. I didn't actually know how that process worked. Like you mentioned, the poaching that it negates the economic stimulus it brings to those areas, because without those hunters going over there, the small African town or village, the person who's the guide wouldn't be getting paid, the assistant guide wouldn't be getting paid, the driver wouldn't be getting paid, the hotel that they're staying at wouldn't be getting paid. And not to mention, yeah, the poaching it, it wouldn't even, like, literally every animal would probably be extinct over there, or a lot of them, because poaching is already a huge issue, even with the influx of American and Western money for hunting. So that's a perspective change that I made for that exact reason. I used to literally be like, yeah, I don't know why anybody would ever go do that. That doesn't really align with my values. But oh, and here's another thing: herd management. There, most cases, any ethical hunting operation there or in America, most cases you're not going and killing the youngest bull that you can find, or the youngest male species you can find. Most of the time, like a giraffe or a zebra and stuff, it's elderly men, of the population that have already reproduced, that are already passing their genetics on. So then you cull those older males so that the younger males can have more resources, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's, when you actually break it down and dive into it and do a little more research, like I did myself, it completely changed my perspective on that.
Yeah, that's a big thing that I missed is hunters, like predators, don't care what animal they're killing. Nature doesn't care what dies by starvation or disease. The diseases don't care what animal dies. Hunters are the only ones that selectively harvest game. That's why you see regulations, whether it be 3-point minimum or an antlerless hunt where you can only kill a doe. That's because someone has went out and done studies and gotten data from there that says, okay, this herd's getting overpopulated. So if we don't do something about it, the genetics and the animals that we want to keep are going to die because they're going to run out of resources, like you said, food, or they're going to become overpopulated and the disease is going to run through them and it's going to kill all of them. Hunters go through and they thin selectively, what needs to be taken out. And like you said, in Africa, or whether it be here or in Africa, they selectively do it off age, off genetics. Like you said, culling, that's a big word you hear down south, in Texas and stuff like that, because you want to take out certain things so that the other things have room to grow. So
Mm-hmm.
whether that be genetics or a species, there's ways to manage everything. It could be predator management, right? You need to manage the number of cougars or wolves in an area so that the prey species can grow. Um, or you need to not do that so the predator species can grow and keep that in check, because it's all an ecosystem reality. You take a piece out of it and other pieces are going to suffer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that selective harvesting is probably one of the biggest thing that people don't understand, is that nature itself doesn't care who dies or what happens. It just runs its course. Whereas hunters were able to have that ability to selectively manage the herds and populations.
Yeah, I got two things on that. It seems like a common conception. For example, I know some ladies that have talked about like bear hunting and stuff, and how, like, but I don't want anybody, like, how could you ever kill a bear with her cubs? And I'm like, that's not that's not how it works. Like,
Yeah,
there's so many
there's laws
regulations.
against it. You
Yeah,
can't kill a bear with cubs.
exactly, for that exact reason. And humans are, the like you mentioned, the only external force to these animals with which any care is exercised. Like, literally the only one. And we're the only reason we care is because we've quote unquote like become ethical in our ways in our hunting. And that's a whole different rabbit hole, because like the Sioux Indians or the Cheyenne Indians didn't care either. They were trying to eat because they didn't have options. So it's funny how we've sort of progressed towards that. The analogy that I kind of thought of in terms of selective breeding, or why would you do that, is like the same reason that somebody would pick a weed from a lawn. Like,
Yep.
okay, well, you want your grass to grow there and not those weeds, right? So you pick the weeds so that the grass can grow there, because there's only a certain amount of space and a certain amount of resources. You want the grass to grow, just like for whitetail hunting, you want certain genetics to be passed through. So you pull out the weeds, so you cull a buck, or you are very selective with the tags that you give out if it's a private ranch, etc. So I think that's such a fascinating conversation, and not to like ostracize vegans or vegetarians or people who don't like hunting or don't support it, but I really do think it's such an important conversation to be having, to to show the nuance, because it's not just like hunters versus vegans. Like everybody wants the world to be a better place, the natural world. Everybody wants the natural world to be healthier and more vibrant and better for the animals that live there. Hunters are on the forefront of that. Like the vast,
Yeah.
I don't want to generalize too much, but the vast majority of ethical hunters are doing everything they can to make sure that the habitats in which they hunt are as pristine and well kept as they possibly can be.
Yeah, that's another good point. A lot of these people, like whether it be vegans or whoever, a lot of people are worried about the future, um, and our ways kind of mitigating that, whether it be reducing plastic or things like that, picking up trash, whatever. I think hunters do the most of anyone on ensuring the sustainability of our wildlife for the future. And that's a big topic now. Everyone wants to, save the earth or whatever it is. And that's part of the earth,
Yeah.
our wildlife, our mountains, our wilderness, all that stuff needs to be preserved if you want to keep that stuff around. So yeah, I think that's a good point. If they want to do that, and if they want to, claim they're, saving the earth, trees, whatever it is, hunting does all that. Like if you see, like your respectable hunters and stuff, they're the guys that are in the woods. They go to a campsite and there's trash. They pick it up. They do they do those little things that people I don't think realize. Um, but yeah, like what I said earlier, like they're the people trying to keep housing developments from going in. They're the people that try to keep, you know, those tourist things like you
Yeah.
see Yellowstone, things like that. We're trying to keep that out so things are natural and sustainable over time because hunting or wildlife is a resource, just no different than trees or whatever, and it has to be managed effectively for that resource to keep giving in the future.
Yeah, and a simple way to put it is no hunter ever wanted to see an apartment complex or a highway go through their favorite unit. Like nobody's ever
Yeah,
like oh, I love hunting this area. It's pristine. The wildlife is incredible. It's majestic. Let's put a damn 4-lane highway in the middle. That's not how it works. They would be the people petitioning to make the highway either non-existent or go somewhere completely different. So I mean, I think that's so important. I think that's a message that needs to be spread way more often. Especially you're out west, dude. So it might even be a little bit different for you. But like the cities in the east, I guess cities in the west are the same. But like the cities in the east, man, a lot of people. I've had people that like in high school and stuff. Maybe it's ignorance. Maybe they've changed their ways. But people that like ate meat that were against hunting, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I want to talk to you. But like, there's some level of
yeah,
delusion going on there.
that's what I said. I think a lot of it is the experience. A lot of people aren't given. I feel very fortunate to have grown up how I did and had, the people around me that I did. Because, like you said, if you grow up in a household where you're not around it, or if you grow up in a city and your friends aren't, for it, and maybe their parents are against it, that's all you're going to be surrounded by. So that's all you're going to know, and you're probably going to think that's the truth. You're not going to seek the truth. Some people do; they seek the truth, and numbers don't lie. Anyone can create a video and spread a message that they want to spread, and tailor that video to spread that message. Because there's bad, like I said, there's bad apples in everything, and there's hunters out there that aren't the greatest. But it's like that with anything. There's bad apples in every walk of life, and that doesn't speak for the whole community. It just means that there's one or two, a video here of people not doing, the things that they should. Uh, but yeah, especially in society today, the way it's going, like I said, hunting isn't a thing. Like everybody wants to, whether it's play a sport and be a professional athlete, or do this or do that, or be a lawyer. It's not everybody's greatest interest to be like, man, I hope I grow up and can kill an elk one day.
Yeah.
So that data and everything, I think, is going unrecognized, and people are just learning from sources that aren't accurate,
Yeah.
a lot of the time. And like you said, people are like, "Oh yeah, how could you kill an animal to get meat?" yet they go buy a steak from the grocery store. Like that cow lived in a
Yeah.
damn pen that was barely wide enough for itself, was fattened every day, and then it was shot in the head with a 22 or something. I
Yeah.
would way rather an animal go live in the wilderness where it's naturally supposed to be, eat the things that it's supposed to do, and then get that meat from that source.
Yeah. 100%. And that's probably out of the whole, that's a pretty small margin of people that think that way because that's delusional in my opinion. But I have had conversations like in high school with friends that would eat meat and they're like, dude, I just can't get behind hunting. I'm like, you're lost. But
Yeah, yeah,
Joe,
that and it's not. I wouldn't say it's delusional or uncommon because I've had that conversation with a lot of people.
dude, that's
Um,
crazy.
and there's a lot of people that think that way who won't eat venison or whether it's elk, deer, or whatever, because they say it's sad that the animal was killed and it's such a beautiful animal. How could you kill it? But in reality, man, it's way better than
Yeah.
the animals they're eating from a grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even like, to me, that's so far gone. It's like almost like, hey, okay, fine, dude, I'll just eat more venison myself. Like, I'm cool with that.
Yep.
But Joe Rogan, which I think is like one of the best things to ever happen to hunting, is Joe Rogan becoming a hunter. And
Yeah.
the reason that he did so is because he started doing more research on factory farming, like we've been talking about, these cows and these chickens that legitimately have half an inch of space their entire life, that are fed completely unnatural foods, taking vaccines out the, like, literally every day, hormonal antibiotic shots, GMO'd food, just the most unnatural way they could possibly live life. And the way they're killed is brutal. The way that they're just treated like not living things is brutal. And he started doing research on that and said, I have two options. I'm either going to become a vegetarian or I'm going to hunt. And so he tried hunting and he said he's never looked back, which I think is so cool. But the reason I bring that up is the example you brought up of seeking, like somebody that goes and seeks the truth. Joe Rogan learned, so he gained awareness of what was going on and how he was acting in the world, which was consuming factory meat. And he said, I have to change this so I can either A, go away from it and not eat meat, or I can become an active participant in the process. And I think it speaks for itself. Obviously now he's a like devout hunter. So I think that's a very, very cool example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people it's like this with a lot of things in the world today, people that whatever they consider it a problem. I think if they were, truth seekers and they didn't want to come to a conclusion based off a 10-second video, like I said, and they actually seek that truth, it would change their perspective greatly. Going back to what you said, I was at a chicken farm actually yesterday, and I saw a chicken that escaped, and that was. I wish I could show you a picture of it, man. It was like it had 10 feathers on it. It looked like it had the worst disease in the world, but that's just how they are. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
people think this is better than an animal living in the wilderness and killing it. Like an animal shouldn't have to live that way, but it's there's millions of chicken farms or dairies or whatever the case may be in the world where these animals are that way. I think if people experienced that and then experienced hunting and saw the data, the numbers, all the things that go into it, I think their perspective would be shift dramatically.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people don't want to put the time into that. They want to base their opinions off something someone told them one time
Yeah. Just
or
be sheep. Like, tell me what to do and
yeah,
I'll do
video.
it.
That's exactly it. People are sheep now. They watch a video and they think they are an expert on the topic.
Yeah. And another number that I have thought about before, but Yellowstone has a little scene where John Dutton talks about it, and then I saw a video recently. But the deaths per calorie. So people think, how could you kill that animal? And not to keep harping on vegans and stuff, but like this Impossible Meat, these Beyond Burgers, these massive farming. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland, millions actually. The amount of deaths per calorie consumed on those compared to hunting is exponential, like probably not even measurable, because when you're plowing a field to grow soy or corn, and I'm not saying this is bad, but I'm just saying it's a perspective that needs to be addressed. you're killing snakes, rabbits, squirrels, varmints, any type of insect that are existing there, any type of bird that's nested, any quail, any ground nesting bird. Um, all of those things are getting killed, every single one, right? And then what that does is the birds that feed on those um, insects or those smaller animals, they don't have the prey that they usually eat. Compared to you kill one elk, I kill one elk, I'm probably good on meat for myself for the better part of a year, if not more, depending on how much meat I consume. That's one death. It's a clean death, like you mentioned. You're a part of the process in every single step. You finding the elk, killing it, cleaning it, butchering it, packing it, cooking it, and eating it. And to me, that's like evidence enough right there. Okay, one death in the most ethical way we can possibly do it as a human being, or at least aspire to. Because no hunter wants to draw out a kill. Like nobody wants to kill an elk and make it suffer. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So one death for a year's worth of high quality nutrition versus thousands, if not millions of deaths that are just not as glamorous to talk about because they're insects and snakes and smaller stuff like that. So I think that's very interesting as well.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think people have that perspective, but it would be interesting, to take people that think like that and go have them see these places and have them get the hard numbers and the truth, the data, the unbiased perspectives of it. Have them see what all goes into farming and see what happens as a cause of that, or have them go see a dairy or a chicken farm or egg farm or whatever that be, and then go have them see hunting and wildlife and all that goes into that. um, and I would challenge them, man, if they spent a couple months eating venison and raw organic things, how much better they'd feel than eating plant burgers and things like that.
That's yeah. You don't got to convince me of that. That's I mean, we've texted about it several times. I'm very actively trying to, like doing my best to be able to get in the elk woods during
Mm-hmm.
a and getting a tag like as soon as I can. Because my uncle, for example, this is another cool thing about hunting, at least for me. When you think about how we've progressed as humans when we were hunter and gatherers, and I keep bringing up the Indians, like the Sioux, Cheyenne, anybody, anything that bison, any Indian tribe they hunted. My uncle killed a 6x6 in New Mexico with a bow, with a crossbow last year, and it was a very hard hunt. He's like older 50s, so I mean like it. Obviously, it's exponential at that age. And then he gave us some of the meat, and of all the gifts I might have ever received in my life, a fresh backstrap from an archery killed bull might be one of my favorite. It might be like
Mm-hmm.
one of the one that had the most meaning to me, and I think that's so cool to be able to. I don't know about you, but you hunt for 25 days solo, you kill an elk, and then saying, you know what, I'm going to give X amount to a buddy just out of the grace of my heart. Like that's so
Yeah,
cool to me.
it's actually one of my favorite things is like being a provider or whatever. I love people think like you hear people give Cameron Haynes crap a lot, like saying, "Oh, you killed 4 elk in a year. There's no way you can eat all that meat." But it's not that you're giving it to people. You have friends and family, and a lot of people desire that. And like you said, it's a great gift, because you spent so much time and effort into that, and then to give some of that away is pretty cool. But it's people that are truly into it and stuff. I think it's one of their favorite things to do. At least for me, it is to be able to share that with other people.
Yeah. And there's definitely something instinctual about that specific gift. Like
Hmm.
something's got like neurologically uh, wired for us to, as men, as providers, to be like, this feels so good for me that I'm able to give y'all this thing that back in the day when we didn't have so many food options would be the difference between our family and your family's dying or living. So like for me to be able to give that, there's something in our wiring that makes that feel so good.
No, it's the
Um,
same. Every time I open my freezer, I get that feeling, man. Like
yeah,
every time I open my freezer and I'm pulling out a package of elk steaks or elk burger or something, there's something about it that makes me feel good. Versus, if I go to Costco or Winco or whatever, if I open up a package of meat, it's not the same. Like
Mhm.
I don't feel the same after. There's multiple. We can talk about the health benefits of it or whatever, but just mentally, it's like this is it, man.
Yeah.
Like eating raw, your organic, grass fed, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that wild venison. There's something about it. It's
There
instinctual.
there's well, like I'm as conscious, not as conscious, but I'm a very conscious eater. Like I don't have wild game in my freezer right now, but I get organic pasture raised ground beef, get the highest quality eggs I can. I'm like very conscious comparatively to the vast majority of the population about what I eat and what the animals that I eat, what they're treated like.
Yep.
The I have a picture on my phone too. I killed two doe in a month, and it was the first deer I ever killed a bow. First time I ever cleaned, butchered, field gutted, and like prepped and cooked like nobody else touched the meat except for me. Number one, I gave some of it to my brother and my dad, and I was just like, holy cow, this feels incredible, and some of my buddies. And number two, this is why I took a picture of it. I remember opening the freezer and being like, holy shit, I've got like a month and a half of food that
And you did
I
it.
did
Yeah.
that. And I never get that like all moment when I open like a pack of ground beef, you know. It's not like,
No.
just to wrap up like the hunting questions, do you have any stories or any experiences that stick out, like with predatory animals maybe, or like some crazy things happening?
Yeah, I do. Um, yeah, it's not as common as people think to run into them. Because you got to put it in perspective. Like I've spent so much time in the woods, but yeah, that year I spent 25 days. The day I killed my bull, actually, I was packing it back out and going to camp, and it was just getting dark, and I was insanely exhausted. Like I said, so that year was totally solo. I packed out that bull all by myself. It was 5 trips going in and out. I killed it at 10 in the morning, and I got it packed out to a road at like 9 o'clock at night. Um, but yeah, coming back, I walk around the corner. It's just getting dark, and it's in some timber. There's an opening, and I just see like this tan animal, and I think I was just so tired or whatever. I was like, what the heck is that? And it was close. And by the time I realized it's 7 steps away, I just see the tail go up, and it was a cougar, a full-on mountain
Oh
lion.
shit.
And I have a pistol. I'm not as good about it as I should be. I'll keep it in my backpack sometimes or whatever. But really, if I needed it and it was in my backpack, it would be too late to get it out.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, man, I just had a thought that day, like, oh, I should, I killed my elk already. I should just put this on my hip. I'm packing meat. You never know. And I came around the corner. That thing was right freaking there, and I shot at it, and it ran off like down off this little embankment. And I went down there, and it was just standing there looking at me. I shot it again. Um, yeah, and I ended up not killing it. The thing lived, but obviously it didn't kill me, which is good. But then, yeah, later that year, I was hunting whitetail in that same area, and lo and behold, it walked out, and I shot it 3 months later during whitetail season.
Same one?
Yeah, with a rifle.
Wow. Holy cow. That's
Yep.
insane. Dude, I wonder if it like knew. It's like, oh, there's Dalton. I'm about to get his ass. Like,
Yeah, I don't know, man.
that's wild.
And you don't see cougars are probably the most stealthy kind of incognito animal out there. Like generally, if you see them, it's because they wanted you to see them, or they just don't really care.
Yeah.
They're so they generally only move at night, and even during the day, they're just so methodical about their movement that you don't see them.
Yeah.
So to have that happen was cool. It's not an experience you get a lot. Yeah, wolves, they're a little different. They're not too spooky because they're kind of like, yeah, they just come out and kind of show themselves. They hunt in
Yeah.
a pack type thing. They're not as stealthy as, like I say, a cougar.
Yeah.
But yeah. Then other than that, I've had one experience. I've had lots of, I've seen lots of bears or whatever. They're not that bad, but I had one experience where I'd shot a bear, Um, well, two, but one in particular. When I was hunting with Matt, doing that show thing, I shot a bear and I hit it a little forward with a bow. But there was a rainstorm coming in, so we were like, well, it's super thick country. If you don't have blood to follow, you're probably not going to find what you're looking for. So we're like, well, we'll give it like 15 minutes and we're going to go look for this thing. And we went looking for it. We tracked it probably 200 yards down off this north facing slope, and it was super thick. Well, we started to lose blood. Matt was like, here, take the camera. I'm going to get on my hands and knees. You stay at the last blood. I'm going to get on my hands and knees and look for blood. And right when he said that, we looked up, and it was like, I don't know, less than 10 feet away, sitting in the brush, just staring at us.
Oh, so it's still
And
alive.
yeah, and we didn't have a gun, nothing. I had my bow, that was it. Uh, and I
That's
drew back and shot that thing at like 10 feet. Um, and it started roaring and spinning circles. I drew back and it was still roaring and spinning circles. And I shot it again and ended up dying right there about
holy
10
cow.
feet from us.
What
Yeah,
type of
and it was
bear?
big. Yeah, big black bear. It was a color phase one. It actually
Yeah,
had it was like a red color, but yeah, big black bear.
dude, that's yeah. I mean, I'm looking up right now, like 10 feet, dude. That's not very far. That's
No,
that's
no, it
like
was
right
so
there.
close. And especially
That's
with a
crazy.
bow, like, I mean, I could have shot that thing, and if it wanted to, it could have just, even after I shot it, ran and got us, but it didn't. Same with the cougar, too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, both
Seven
those
steps
were,
isn't far either, man. I'm like, the vast majority of people, specifically in America, like 100%, will never come even anywhere close to a predatory animal in the wild that close. Like not even within a few
no.
hundred yards.
Yeah, and I'm used to bears. I've killed quite a few of them, and you see a ton of them, especially up here. But cougars,
Yeah.
and there's an eerie feeling about them. They make you feel a little different, and even after you kill one, walking up to it, it's almost spooky even touching it, just because
Yeah.
they're not something you see every day.
And they do have like this. It's like a James Bond vibe. They're just like I've never seen one in person, but like from what I've gathered and from what I've seen in videos, is they just move so elegantly and very under the radar that like, for example, you could the likelihood of you spooking a like of that being a bear that's 7 yards away or 7 steps away that's just chilling that you had like no idea about, I feel like it's probably lower than it just being a cougar. How big are cougars?
They vary. That one that I killed that was 7 steps away was huge. You have to when you kill them, you bring it into the fish and game, and they have to do what's called sealing it. So basically, they pull a tooth from it. It's all data, like we talked
Mm-hmm.
about before. They pull a tooth from it uh, to age it, see how
Yep.
old it is, and then they want to know where you killed it at, so they can kind of quantify that data of how many predatory animals are being taken out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that biologist said that for a female, it's like top three. He's been working for Fish and Game for 20 years. It's like one of the top three biggest female cougars he's seen.
Dude.
And it was probably, I can send you a picture of it. It's probably nearing that like 180-pound mark. It was big,
I mean,
but they're long, man. They look a lot bigger than that. They're just
yeah,
very lean,
and
you
you're
know.
hunking around elk meat too, so like talk about a prime target, man. That's like
Yeah,
that's like a cougar's dream, I feel like.
yeah, yeah. And it was a cool experience for sure, especially like we talked about. I don't think you can feel more primal or whatever you want to call it. You're killing an elk and you got it on your back, and then next, there's a cougar standing in front of you.
No,
It was a cool deal.
that's awesome, dude. I think that's the level of alertness that you felt in that moment is probably like you probably won't ever be able to feel it again unless you get put in a similar situation, because that's like literally life and death. Like we've adapted throughout the years to be able to deal with situations like that, and seeing a damn
Yeah,
180-pound predatory cat while you're loaded with raw meat. I don't know about that.
yeah. And like I said, I was so tired. It took my brain like a minute to even, because it's not something that happens every day.
Yeah,
So it took my brain even a minute to realize, what was in front of me. And then when I did, it was like, oh shit.
dude, that's awesome. I think that's um, I think that's so cool. I'm not saying I think Steve Ranella talks about this too, where he's like, I don't want to get killed by a bear, but like at some point I want to have like a pretty close altercation. I'm not saying I want am calling upon God to place a predatory animal in my life in any way, but I do think it'd be like a cool story to tell like those, which is very very cool. But nowadays, man,
Yeah, yeah. You
you're
go.
go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was just gonna switch it up a little bit and talk about what you're doing nowadays, firefighting, man. What's going on with that? How'd you get down that road?
Yeah, I started. So when I graduated college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Um, I thought I was pretty heavy on joining. I wanted to join the military. Um, but then there was a bunch of things happening. Then it was COVID, so the whole vaccine thing was floating around and whatnot, and that kind of scared me away from it because I didn't want
Yeah,
to get the vaccine. So I was like, well, I'm gonna have to pick something else. And I looked at the firefighting thing, but fresh out of college, I was young and I was like, was free for the first time, not playing baseball. I was like, man, I want to make money right away. I don't want to put a year or two into getting into
yeah.
firefighting before I can get hired. So I started doing. Uh, I did landscape, like more maintenance stuff for a year,
Hmm.
and then I transitioned into landscape construction, and I did that for a year. And I did love landscape construction. I liked a lot of things about that, but um, there was a part of me where I was like, I just don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Um, if I did, it would be owning my own business,
Hmm.
not working for someone. But
Yeah,
yeah, I just kind of came to a realization I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. Um, for me, it was more like I thought, graduating college, all money's the answer. I need to make money, but I needed personally, I needed to do something that I felt like had a purpose behind it, like it was bigger than myself. So I looked at a lot of different avenues. The whole military thing was still in my head, being a cop, whatever. But then I got into firefighting and just kind of jumped into it. Um, I moved to Moses Lake, where I live now, and started. It's called the resident program. So they have a deal where you go through and you work. So they train you, put you through an academy, and then you graduate the academy, and then they train you to get your certifications like your Fire One, Red Card, are all things I got the past few months, and then you work 2 shifts a week, um, and so yeah, I'm not full time yet, but I work 2 12-hour shifts a week.
very cool.
Um, and then yeah, I'll be going to school, EMT school. Starts July 31st. So
Coming
gonna
up, is that gonna
pursue
be on your
that.
September?
No, man. I graduate September 1st, so I'll miss
Okay,
2 days, but I'll be
so
right
you're
back
gonna
in
probably
there.
head straight there.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And I actually drew a mule deer tag, a really good one, in August. So I'll be doing that as much as I can while I'm going through school, but obviously I need to focus on graduating EMT
Yeah.
school. It's not the easiest thing, so we'll see how
Is
much
that
time I get to spend there.
is that mule deer in Idaho or near where you're gonna be training?
Yeah, in Idaho.
Right on. How far of a drive is that from you?
Uh, for the mule deer hunt,
Yeah.
it's about 6 to 8 hours,
Yeah.
but I'll be living in Boise for EMT school,
Oh, cool.
so it's gonna be not too far away.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that
Yeah.
why you got? Because you lived in Boise for a little bit, correct?
hmm
So is that why you got like the Idaho hunting spot? Is that why you're sort of connected with that, or why do you hunt up there?
No, so I have hunted down south in Boise. I've hunted all over the place, kind of growing up when I hunted with Matt. So learned some stuff from that, but then honestly, like my best elk spot now was my senior year of college. I was playing baseball for LC State in Lewiston, Idaho,
Hmm.
um, and I got COVID, and so I couldn't practice for 2 weeks. And so I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go elk hunting. Like, I'm fine. I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So I just started I got on Onyx and just started looking for the most public land that looked the best to me
Hmm.
based off previous experiences. So then I just went up there and started exploring for 2 weeks, um, and it sucked, honestly. I didn't. I think I heard one bugle, and then I came back. Um, and this is kind of a testament to how fast things can change. Like I said, it seems impossible, and then all of a sudden it happens, and it seems easy. I came back, and my trainer was like, "Oh, uh, we're not going to be able to get someone in to get you seen until Monday." So I think it was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday to go hunt. So I was like, well, I'll go back up there and give it one more shot, even though there's not freaking anything up there. I went up there, I think it was like that Friday or something, parked my truck 30 minutes before daylight, got out of my truck, and it was like Jurassic Park. There was bulls bugling
Dude,
360 degrees around me.
in the
And
same
so,
spot.
yeah, and a spot I had hunted a week prior. I think I'd seen one spike, but yeah, so I took off after. I didn't even know which. I'd never been in a situation like that. I didn't even know which one to go after. So I think I ended up doing a 13-mile loop. Um, chasing these elk everywhere, and then about midday, I ended up killing one.
Dude,
It ended up being only like a mile from my truck, but I hiked a 13-mile loop to get there.
that's a pretty damn
Uh,
good COVID, honestly.
yeah, it was a good experience.
Dude, that what branch of the military did you think about joining?
I was gonna do the Navy thing. Um, yeah, I
Try to be a
thought,
SEAL?
yeah,
I
the
could see it.
whole that, yeah, it was cool to me, obviously, like it is to a ton of people. Um, but for me, I was just like, man, like I'm gonna have to dedicate my life to doing that. Um, and like I said, when I do something, I tend to have addictive personality, and I go all out on it. And I was like, if I do that and I spend my life dedicating myself to that, I wouldn't, not to get political, but I wouldn't trust, that under
No,
the
totally.
leadership we're under today. I
Hmm.
wouldn't want to dedicate my life to that and then have someone like that be my leader and tell me where to go, or, oh, you need to get this vaccine, you need to
Yeah.
do this with your body type thing. So that kind of scared me out of it, just because I was like, I don't want to, dedicate my life to something and then, be under the mercy of someone
Yeah.
else.
You just lose. Well, the reason I have a on Monday, or my podcast that dropped this week, which would be episode 6, is with a Air Force veteran, government contractor guy, very very cool dude. And then the podcast that's dropping next week is with a special forces veteran. So
Hmm.
those are both cool conversations, just talking with dudes that went that route. And my conversation with Alvin that dropped this week, he talks about that exact thing where he's like, because he's very holistic, healthy, very like tapped into all that type of stuff that I'm tapped into. And he's like, dude, in the military, they line you up and they just give you shot, 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 shot. And because I had a similar experience, man, where I left college, I sort of started my own, picked up where I left off from high school with my landscaping business and had no idea what I wanted to do. And I tossed around, if I was going to join, it'd be the Army. But just the idea of not having any sovereign, like if you're enlisted, like they literally were kicking people out, man. Like they were, oh, you don't,
Yeah.
all right, see it. And then you've devoted X amount of years to your life and you don't want to get this. And then all of a sudden you're high and dry. That didn't seem like
Yeah, that
something
was
that I
my
really wanted to
thing.
risk.
I seen, I followed a bunch. Followed a lot of people in that community because I wanted to learn as much as I could about it. And I saw these guys getting out that had spent 20 years dedicating their life to it, and then they just kicked them out like nothing they did mattered.
Yeah.
And they went through so much stuff, whether it was their teammates dying or the X amount of injuries they experienced from all this work and dedicating their life to it, because it is something you have to dedicate your life to. And then they just got kicked out like nothing they did was worth a shit, and so that didn't sit right with me. um, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be at the mercy of someone like that.
Yeah.
Because that I don't, those guys are incredible how they deal with that, but I don't know how I would deal with that. Dedicating my life to something like that and then just being kicked out because you don't want to get a shot.
Yeah, the amount of frustration that you'd feel is probably the amount of frustration that I would feel would be exponential. And that kind of reminds me of Novak Djokovic. Have you heard of him, the tennis player?
Uh-uh.
He's like arguably one of the best tennis players of all time, and he didn't get the vax, like completely held out, missed like majors, like the equivalent of like Augusta National, U.S. Open for golf, and
Mm-hmm.
with that comes, I think sponsors dropped him. He missed probably tens and tens of millions of dollars that he said no to. And there was an interview where they were talking. He's like, "There's no price. Like I'm not like it's not a price thing for me. It's I'm not doing it." And I
Yeah.
just kind of related, kind of unrelated. I just thought that was so cool that he held so firmly in his belief. He was facing down tens and millions of dollars, tens and tens of millions of dollars. And I was like, dude, I don't care. Like it's not about that for me. It's a principle thing. And that's coming from somebody who freaking got the vaccine, which is one of what I'd like to tell. I don't have a regret, but I don't have regrets in life. But if there's one thing that I could go back and change, it would be that. Um, I literally don't even like thinking about it, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I can't like. I just feel like such a bitch when I think about the fact that I did that. But whatever.
No,
Um,
it was a tough decision for me because obviously society wants to conform you to do that, whatever. Um, but like based upon where you're at, man, like some people wouldn't have been able to survive if they didn't get it. Like whether it was a work thing, a school thing. Yeah, I think you were still playing baseball through it.
yeah, that's
Um,
the excuse
I
I
was
give
very,
why I did it.
yeah, I was very fortunate. I was in school at LC State when I did it, and they aren't, they don't push those things upon you like some other places would. Uh, they didn't really give a shit. They're like, get it if you want to get it. If not, cool. So I
Just
was
cool.
very fortunate being in the situation I was because, who knows? I like to think, you're strong or whatever, but when your whole future's on the line, it
Yeah.
would probably, it might have been a different decision. But yeah, I was
True.
very fortunate to be at where I was.
Yeah, the school I was at, it was not that case. They basically would have made me like pay for it myself, like or pay for testing myself every week or every other week for basically the entire time. If I just I would have been like borderline sacrificing the chance to play it during the season basically because then it would have been like if somebody on the team gets it then I like have to sit and it's like okay dude I can either bite this bullet which I frankly I wish that I didn't but can't go back.
Yeah,
But I mean, dude, the firefighting's cool. What do you like? How do you like that on a day to day? Like, that's a pretty interesting career choice.
I love it, and there's a lot of things from it that align with who I am. Like helping other people. Like I said, I want to be a part of something bigger myself. There's a lot of different aspects to it. It's kind of like elk hunting. There's always something to learn. You never have it all figured out. So I like that, and I get to do some wildland stuff along with it.
That's cool.
So obviously, I like that being in the mountains and stuff. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of things I like about it. I'm a little bit of a adrenaline junkie, so I like there's times where that definitely gets involved, and I like
Hmm.
it. Um, yeah, it's cool. I've enjoyed it a lot. To me, it's like yeah, I wanted to pick a career. Honestly, a big factor of it. I want to pick a career that allowed me the time to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think I want to pursue something in the outdoor space as like started off as like a side hustle type thing. Um, because I don't know, I saw some things somewhere that was like you should have a career, but you should always have if you can make money off your passion,
Hmm.
that's I think the ultimate goal to
Yeah.
never feel like you're working, but you're making a living. So I think I love the firefighting thing, and that's kind of my career choice. But it also with it, schedule you're usually 48 on, 96 off for a full time guy. I only work 24 hours a week right now for it,
Hmm.
but um, that 96 off is going to allow me the free time to kind of do what I want, whether that's be pursue a career in the outdoor world, or whether it's,
Outdoor meaning like guide or
not
outfit of
necessarily
some.
guide. I do. I think videography is cool.
Yeah,
Like the content creation, I guess they call it now. I had a little stint of that when I was younger. Uh, Not something I'd want to do. Just kind of showcasing. Maybe it's um, to help people get a better idea of what actually goes on in hunting, whatever the case may be. But yeah, making videos, doing that type of thing is something I want to get into.
very cool.
Well, not get into. I've gotten into it, but get better at.
Continue, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that was kind of a big part of it. It allowed me the time off, but it still kind of gave me that security of having a career, a retirement, whatever. And it's a job that I love. I never show up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't
Yeah.
want to do this. Oh, I have to go to work today. I'm always excited to show up, and whether that stays forever or not, I don't know. But right now, that's how I feel for sure.
But yeah, ride that wave, man. That's very cool. It seems like from what I'm gathering from this conversation, it seems like it's like exactly where you need to be. It gives you the time to explore your outdoor passion. It's bigger than yourself, so it kind of taps into that the desire to serve and also protect. Like talk about hunting, providing and protecting. Like you're helping protect, which is another masculine imperative. So I think that's very cool, man. It sounds like a good gig. 48 hours on, 96 off is that's more of like my speed. I work better in like sprints and rests as opposed to like just same thing every day. I would rather like go hard, and then rest. So that seems like it'd be
Yep.
more in tune with the way that I operate.
Yeah, that's how I can't. Man, I can't work a 9 to 5. Some people can, and I respect them for it. But like we talked about, like the landscape construction gig, that was not. Like I love the job itself,
Yeah,
but waking up, going to work every day, and just living for the weekend
yeah,
is not something I can do.
yeah.
Um, is it something I'll do to get by? Yeah, but that's not what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing. Um,
Necessary sacrifice, but not the ideal.
yeah, so I definitely like the schedule of it and the fire. Yeah, there's a lot of aspects about it that I enjoy.
What's your hunting schedule looking like the rest of the year? Like any obviously elk in September, mule deer in they're not going to be rutting. That'll just be like a early
Yeah,
season.
early season velvet hunt. So it's a
Oh, cool.
special hunt. It's a rifle hunt in August, which you don't come by much.
Hmm.
In a really good spot.
Cool.
I was in there in 2014, and a buddy Matt, the guy that I hunt with a lot, he killed a giant in
Right
there.
on. That's awesome.
So yeah, I'll do that in August. September will be spent elk hunting.
Yep.
Then October, I haven't totally planned out yet. I've got a Washington elk tag and deer tag as well. So I might spend some time in October there. If not, then I'll have a second deer tag in Idaho for whitetail
Cool.
up north that I'll hunt. I usually wait until mid-November when they're rutting to do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I'll be spending a ton of time doing that. And then I waterfowl hunt and stuff in the winter. But honestly, the biggest thing I've gotten into recently is bass fishing.
Dude, I've been
Um,
seeing your stories, bro. You've been hammering it.
Yeah, so I gotten into competitive bass fishing, fishing tournaments and things like that, and I love that. I think I missed that competitive aspect that baseball brought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've fallen down the rabbit hole of bass fishing. So I spend a ton of
Yeah.
time doing that now.
Bro, I feel like every day I check your story and it's like another massive bass. Another massive
Yeah.
bass.
Now I live on the lake now, so in Moses Lake. So I got Moses Lake and Powell's Reservoir right here. So and
Which
it's
is
kind of
dope.
it's a cool situation to be in. I get to go out and do that, man. I'm pretty happy.
Spend time outside, man. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, bro, I think that's a good place to wrap it up, man. I really appreciate your time, your insights. It's been really, really fun.
Yeah. No, thank you for bringing me on here. And,
Hopefully not the last time. I think it's an important message, man. Hopefully not the last time we can talk. Maybe one time we can talk sort of like Cam Haines and Rogan do as a hunt recap where we're out in the
yeah,
woods
that's us.
together.
And maybe we should do a podcast at an elk camp or something. That'd be a lot cooler than sitting on my couch.
Yeah, I agree, bro. That would be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be the way to do it, man. But alrighty, appreciate it, man.
Yeah. You have a good one.